have a quorum, and we've reached the appointed hour, so the meeting begins. We have two discussion papers. The administration has provided ECI 2012-1313 for members' reference, and the paper lists the changes of directorate grade establishment since 2002, and also the implications of the two proposals in the papers on the directorate establishment. I'd like to ask members to declare interest if you have any direct or pecuniary interest in relation to the items to be discussed today, and please comply with Section 83A of the procedure and disclose the nature of your interests. And I would like to draw members' attention that Section 84 of the Rules of Procedures is a specific provision on the voting process when members have any direct pecuniary interest. Item 1 on the agenda, paper EC 2012-13, 23 and 23A, Government Secretariat Offices of the Chief Secretary for Administration and Financial Secretary. Members are invited to recommend to the Finance Committee the creation of a supernumerary post in Secretariat to the Commission on Strategic Development within the Central Policy Unit for a period of 4 years and 3 months, and the title is Assistant Secretary of the CSD, and the decision will come into effect immediately upon approval of the AFC. The administration consulted the electrical public services panel on the 19th of November 2012, and we have Ms. Olivia Nib, Deputy Head, Central Policy Unit, Mr. Raymond Fan, Secretary for Commission on Strategic Development, CPU, and also the Chairman of the Public Services Panel, Mrs. Zip, on the 20th of February this year, is now going to brief members on the discussion of the panel. In fact, the Public Service Panel on the 19th of November last year discussed the establishment of an AO staff grade C post under the Central Policy Unit of the CSD, and the title is Assistant Secretary of the CSD. The panel generally agreed that the administration would make the recommendation to the ESC for discussion, but Ms. Emily Lau opposed the proposal. Ms. Lau was of the view that the CPU was involved in the formulation of many important policy decisions, and yet it was not effective. The continuation of the CSD would be a waste of money. Some members were of the view that there might be duplication works between the CSD and other advisory bodies. The administration's view was that the CSD was chaired by the CE, and it was responsible for discussing different policy issues from a macro, long-term, and strategic perspective, and they were not like other advisory bodies. The administration, in view of the fact that the administration intended to reduce its membership in the new term, members queried whether there was a need to have an assistant secretary post to be created. The administration's response was that despite the decline in number of members, the workload had increased. In fact, last term there was a supernumerary post of the secretary, and it's only for the continuation of that post, and I have to declare interest because I'm a member of the CSD. Thank you, Mrs. Zip. Dr. K.K. Kwok, 5 minutes each. We all know that the CSD is a body under the CPU. Now, since the formation of the new term of the government, the CSD and the CPU have created a lot of troubles, and people have little support for the CSD. The CPU under Xu Jinping is just a secret group and is trying to influence people by calling people up. As for the appointment of the CSD, it is the club of Leung fans. I don't know whether Mrs. Lau is considered to be one of these. But you can see that in the campaign team of CY Leung, many members of campaign team of CY Leung have become members of the CSD. We have strong reservation of spending so much money on the CSD. Now, it's said that the CSD is responsible for macro and long-term strategies for Hong Kong, but we all know that the CSD has all along been a talk shop. I'm concerned that civil servants should be put to more efficient tasks instead of just serving a talk shop. We need to help the poor. We need to develop our economy. We need more manpower, more talents, be they civil servants or senior civil servants. It's absolutely not worthy to spend so much public money on a talk shop made up of Leung fans. I really want to ask, what can the CSD help? What sort of long-term strategic goals can be established and can be implemented? The civil servants have a lot of work to do, but having civil servants joining a talk shop, just listening and doing the manual work for the CSD is of no use. I really don't know what they can do. Mr. Fan. Now, in fact, Mr. Kwok just raised a single question. Now, for this term of the CSD, what will be discussed? Now, the CSD has been formed for so many years, and it has been evolving over the time. But the basic issue is about the basic thing is about macro and long-term issues. The CSD of this term is not just discussing all questions. In fact, in paragraph 4, we have made a number of improvements to the new CSD. We have listened to the comments of electoral members and members of the community, and we've made some changes to the CSD. As for what things are we going to consider, there are various short, medium, and long-term issues in the community. And there are different committees and research groups or advisory bodies which are looking after specific issues. But the CSD has a role to play in terms of enhancing Hong Kong's long-term international competitiveness, as well as giving input on social, economic, and political developments of Hong Kong. There is a shift in major focus, and there is also a change in our interaction with groups and people outside the CSD. The member is concerned whether the CSD is just another talk shop. And we've in fact strengthened this aspect in terms of paragraph 4b. We emphasize that the post is created to enable a better coordination and communication between the CSD and the bureaus and departments. And after completion of meetings, there will be papers issued to the public for discussion and feedbacks if appropriate. And we've also discussed the matter with 31 members of the CSD with regard to the emphases of the CSD. And we will also look into other issues, which of course are related to macro and long-term matters, other than those we have discussed before, and that may include further discussion in terms of the environment and also our working with the mainland. Ms. Emily Lau, as said by Mrs. Regina Ip, I oppose, or we oppose, the recommendation. I really don't know why the director of the CPU or the head of CPU is not here, and if he comes, then there will be a lot of sparks. In fact, we are going to propose to cancel the budget for the CSD, for the CPU. Now, Mr. Xiu, I don't know whether you were present at the previous meeting. Mr. Xiu said that the CPU was a political tool. Now, they are political. These people may be politically appointed, and they have political work to do, but they may not get people's recognition. But if they are civil servants, then they shouldn't be political tools. Now, let's look at the track record. Yesterday, the chairman asked at the commission at the train industry panel on a proposal to create a post, and you asked for a track record. Now, there were 8 meetings, 3 informal meetings, and 7 specific discussions, including housing. Now, in a year, you had so many meetings, and you got nothing. What was there of any, which was of any use? And you also said that you're going to enhance the quality of study. That means that in the previous studies are of low quality. Now they are to discuss socio-economic and political development strategy, but they didn't discuss. They didn't do anything on political development. We asked the administration to provide a paper to tell us who the members are. Don't just give us the names. But if you look at Annex 1, we are only given the names. We've asked the administration many times before. That is the basic requirement of transparency. We don't know everybody. You need to tell us what are their major careers, what are their major professions. I have been talking about it for 6 or 7 years. Sometimes they don't even produce a paper in English version. They are not doing their job, and now they ask to create another new post. This is very basic. Number 1, what are the effective outcomes? Why they put down political development, and yet there is no progress? They have so many meetings. How have they helped Hong Kong? How much have they helped Hong Kong? They're just wasting our money, aren't they? Let me answer Ms. Lau's question on the function of the CPU, and then Mr. Fan will speak on the enhancement. The role of the CPU since its formation in 1989 has not changed. This is the advisory body to the seniors echelon of the administration, i.e. the chief executive and FS. It is a think tank, an internal think tank. It is responsible for helping CE and FS to draft the budget policy address, understand public opinion, and also we have not departed from this role. As for giving advice to the senior echelon of the government, it covers a wide area, and there is no specific area. And we need to keep pace with the times. In recent years, you may see, or you may have seen, that the issues we looked into have shifted, but the basic functions have not changed. Ms. Emily Lau mentioned the head said that He didn't say political tool. The CPU is part of the government, and it has the function, including the provision of service to the government.
As for the CSD, Mr. Fan, I will be brief about the background of the CSD members. When we made the announcement on the appointment, we did give them did give information on the background because the CSD members joined the commission on an individual basis. And actually, a lot of them are public figures. 7 of them are electoral members, say Sir Akers Davis Jones and Mr. Ronald James Blake. They are familiar names. Of course, we can supplement information on the background and provide it to the members. And many of them are, in fact, public figures. Now, as for the effectiveness of CSD, in the paper, we listed the work done in the past term. Now, the CSD has been established for over 10 years, and during different periods, we focused on different topics. Now, as far as political developments are concerned, the term before the last, there was this special dedicated committee which talked at length about political developments. If we needed to discuss macro policies, well, CSD can talk about practically everything. Second time, Dr. Kwok, Chairman, I've listened to the views of the deputy head and the secretary. Well, the CSD has been established for over 10 years, and we don't see the value of their existence. This is most worrying. We don't deny the functions of these posts, but we are just worried whether they should be put to the use that you propose. Yes, Mr. Fan, when you want to give background information on the members, please give information also on who of them are in the electioneering team of CY Leung. I've raised this question many times. As for competitiveness and economic issues, we've got so many committees in the government in various sectors, and they are more focused on looking at economic issues in Hong Kong's competitiveness. For every topic, we've got the relevant committee. Well, is it because the role, or these committees have not performed well, or is it that the CSD will be playing a sort of very senior function? What has happened to the functions of the other committees? Is it because they have not been performing well, and then the CSD has to take remedial measures for them, or is it the CSD is a sort of has a super ability? Well, if that is the case, please give us the results of your work in the past 10 years and convince us that the public money should be used in the way you proposed. Mr. Fan. Thank you, Dr. Kwok. If you want to look at the status and role of the CSD, well, it seems that many different committees are existing to look and study different issues. Of course, each committee has its own role. Now, Dr. Kwok also mentioned that it seems that many committees have been set up recently, and actually we've got over 10 committees set up, but there are only 2 committees which are chaired by the CE. One is CSD, and then the other is the Economic Development Commission. If we look at the objectives of the CSD, CSD has a unique role in that it reports directly to the CE. As far as the ex-officio members are concerned, we also have the Chief Secretary for Administration and the Financial Secretary. They are there to discuss directly with the public figures in the CSD and to discuss issues from a macro and long-term perspective, and that is going to help with our decision-making process. CSD has a unique feature in that we are very transparent. Over the last few terms of office, all the papers, all the discussion results, and all the research papers have been put on the website, accessible by the general public. We will keep on with this tradition. And this time round, we have added the practice that we will prepare an issue of reports to facilitate public discussion on the issues that we discussed. And a lot of our discussions focused on medium and long-term policies. And in the past, we have not been presenting the results of our discussion for discussion by the government officials and also the public as well. Well, we've uploaded the discussion results and papers onto our website. Now, if you want to draft a report, you can just ask a clerk to do it. We don't need elite civil servants to do that job. Now, I just want to ask you what concrete results have you achieved this CSD? Ms. Stefan, again, please. In paragraph 5 of the paper, we said that in the last term, the subjects we covered covered a wide range. I wanted to highlight this. Say, we discussed the topic about Hong Kong's regional cooperation in East Asia, and that was that this subject was not discussed in depth on any other occasions as far as I can remember. And also the topic about complementing the National 12th Five-Year Plan. This is another topic of interest. Now, after the 11th Five-Year Plan was released, the CPU has held a very large-scale seminar, and the results of that seminar were put in a report. Next one, Mr. Kenneth Lang. I want to talk about paragraph 5. From 2009 to 2012, the CSE held 8 meetings, 3 informal consultative meetings, and 7 focused discussions, a total of 18 meetings. Wow, that's not too much. For LegCo, we held more than 18 meetings per week. Now, how many reports have you compiled? How many reports have been uploaded onto the website? Can you give us detailed information? Now, without this directorate-grade staff, is it the case that you wouldn't be able to come up with such kinds of reports? Actually, how many reports help the civil servants in their work? Is it true that the civil servants can still go on with their work without your reports? This post or this colleague has helped me since 2006 with the work of the Secretariat, and his work covers drafting reports. And if necessary, we would ask him to conduct research. And this colleague actually, with his experience and ability, will be able to coordinate such research. So it's important that he has the right experience and expertise. So all along over the past 7 years, this colleague has been able to help out with the work and follow-up work of the CSD. For the 8 meetings, the discussion papers, the minutes of meetings, and press releases were all uploaded onto the website, and that's accessible to everyone. Now, as for research reports. I mentioned about the regional cooperation in East Asia. We've asked the Singaporean University in Singapore to help us draft the report. For other non-expert reports, i.e. internal reports, that have also been uploaded onto the website. If you want a list, of course, we can provide you with a list later on. In every meeting, the topics that we discussed are appropriate and have carry long-term implications. And all the discussion results will be forwarded to the relevant bureaus and departments for their follow-up, if appropriate. When we look at the terms of reference of the CSD, it is that it would help to give long-term and overall perspective in the initial policy-making process, and then we will give the relevant bureaus and departments some directions. So over the years, there were have been different modes of operation. The number has fluctuated from 10 to over 100 and to over 60. So we hope to discuss issues which are timely, and I don't think that the figures would not be able to give a true picture of what we have done. Now, if members are interested, we've got all the information uploaded onto the website. All the reports are open and accessible by the public. And Mr. Leung, do you have any follow-up question? I don't think we can do away with the figures because they can help measure the performance and the results. Now, in 3 years, you hold 80 meetings, 6 on average every year. Now, if you look at paragraph 5, population policy, economic development, they have all of them have dedicated committees looking at these issues. Now, for these 3 major functions, they have now fallen under the purview of dedicated committees. So what functions are left with the CSD? And now you are asking for a directorate post to be created. Do you think his time will be fully used up? Would he be dedicating his entire day, 9 hours, to the work of CSD, or will he be using part of his time for other functions as well? Can you tell me or confirm whether all of this new post's working hours will be taken up by CSD, or his time will be used for some other functions? How can you convince us that this post is justified? Yes, I will give a brief answer. If you want to compare the number of meetings of LegCo with the CSD's meeting numbers, and that's not fair because LegCo members are greater in number. Yes, I can confirm that this colleague is helping full-time with the work of the CSD's secretariat. Now, as to whether some policy portfolios now fall under different dedicated committees, and then we are left with nothing to do. Will there be a duplication of duties? I would like to reiterate that CSD takes a more macro or long-term perspective on things. We would not be looking at imminent issues per se. We would be looking at issues like factors affecting Hong Kong's competitiveness, and issues like how we can help bureaus and departments draw policies and how the public can participate in policy making. Now, next one, Mrs. Regina Yip. CSD will be looking at strategic long-term development of Hong Kong and also long-term trends of Hong Kong. Now, looking through the membership list, it seems that the IT experts are lacking. Now, I think IT has a great impact on global development. So who is going to take that question? Mr. Fan. Of course, we have priorities, and Mrs. Regina Yip is now a member, and she also served in the last term. And she should know that there were people saying that because there were over 60 members in the last term, then the effectiveness of the meetings were put into question. So we told Mrs. Yip that our mode of operation has changed, and we want to create more interaction, and we want to hold longer meetings. Should we have an IT expert in the commission? I would like to say that every member has his own background expertise. Well, I'm not talking about information. I'm talking about information technology. Yes, it's true that not one member's company works on IT. But then if you look at Mr. Jack So, he is chairman of the Hong Kong Tourism Board, Trade and Development Commercial Bureau. So if you asked whether there is one member who belongs to an IT company, well, many members are experts in different fields. We appoint the members based on their individual background rather than which companies they are in. I think all of them have come into contact with information technology in one way or another. The members come from different industries. So if the CSD is of a strategic nature and is forward-looking, would Mr. Fan look into identifying someone with an IT background? Say Mr. Brooke is from the science park, but is not really from the IT field. Yes, can you please discuss with the CE's office whether to appoint someone from the IT background? Thank you. The next one, Miss Emily Lau in the second round. Oh, sorry, Mr. Yu Si Wing in the first round. Rather. Thank you, Chairman.
In the last term, the CSD had 8 meetings, 3 informal consultative meetings, 7 focus discussions in the past 3 years, and the topic covered social mobility, healthcare reform, housing, so on and so forth. Now, with reference to paragraph 5, concerning these such work, is there any concrete outcome apart from issuing papers? Is there any outcome for implementing such tasks? Can you give us any indication of the performance? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Yu. The CSD itself is an advisory body which gives advice directly to the CE, the CSA, and the FS. Thus, the CSD has any implementational function. We only have a dozen or so staff members, and we are not an executive body. But we provide a platform to enable members of the CSD to give advice to the CE, CS4A, and CF and FS on matters listed in paragraph 5, so that the senior echelon of the government will take the lead in implementing various important policies. With regard to direct implementation, the CSD Secretariat is not tasked to do that, and we don't have manpower. As for any specific items that we have implemented, let me name one, and that is the 12th five-year plan. In the 12th five-year plan, we've provided, or during the 12th five-year plan process, we've participated in the process, and we have made suggestions on the road of Hong Kong and what we can do in relation to the five-year plan. And we produce documents to the relevant bureaus. And finally, in the National 12th Five-Year Plan, Hong Kong's role has been enhanced. And that's a good example in respect of looking at various planning issues from the macro and long-term perspectives. We are not just looking at Hong Kong, which has a size of just 1,000 or so square meters. We also look into our role against the context of our country and the region. And if you ask for any outcomes, different departments and policy bureaus in formulating their policies and doing their work have taken into account the advice of the CSD, and that's our role. Mr. Yeo. I think I support increasing the manpower to the CSD, but if just the CSD is limited to theoretical matters and studies, then the CSD has nothing special vis-à-vis other advisory bodies. The CSD should provide positive, far-reaching recommendations, the CE, to deal with immediate issues. There must be a department to do that. The CSD has a role to play in this regard. I hope the administration will look into that in terms of the duties and responsibilities of the CSD, in particular duties and responsibilities of this new post. That's the view of Ms. Yeo, and please take note of that. Ms. Emily Lau, your second round. Chairman, let me state my demands. We don't support the proposal in paper, but if they've got enough support to go to the Finance Committee, then I hope that they should put down in the paper the answer to the question of any outcomes. If you have no achievement, then you better be frank. And if you have any achievements, if any, then state it clearly. Now, the deputy head said that the CPU or the CSD is not a political tool. Then the head of the unit is wrong, and it should be stated clearly that the CPU is not a political tool. And members have asked for what has been done and whether there is any achievement and where can we get the reports. You need to tell us clearly. As for the list of CSD members, Mr. Fan said that they are public figures. Well, there are many public figures. Then you don't need to give any background. You know who is Akers Jones, but somebody may not know who Akers Jones is. Whether he was a former senior government official or whether he is a rich businessman, people may not know. You need to provide all such information. When you have name lists, then you should tell us the major careers, major business, or major profession of that person. And if he or she has a political background, a part member of a political party, you better state it. Your papers in the future should include such information. That should be included in all papers to be submitted to the LegCo. Ms. Emily Lau has made several demands, and I hope the CPU or the CSD Secretariat will provide information. I believe you've noted that. Well, in fact, it's not just FC paper. They can also give us papers from time to time if there is such a need. I hope there can be such an understanding. When you submit papers to the LegCo and when the list of committee members are present, then the background of such persons should be provided. I think that's reasonable, Mr. Chairman. People look at the list and look at the background. They know who these people are. I've been asking for them many years on many occasions. I hope the Deputy Secretary will give the undertaking. Our Secretariat is always chasing after you, just chasing after debts. Ms. Nip, is it okay? Is that okay? Yes, certainly we can provide information asked for by Ms. Emily Lau. Ms. Darley, I have a question for the operation. I've been listening very carefully. The CE and the senior officials need advice on Hong Kong's long-term policy. That's reasonable. And members also have advisors and consultants, and it's difficult to say whether there is any outcome after a discussion. It's hard to measure. Now, they said that there were 8 meetings in last term, paragraph 5, and also the topics or subjects, and each meeting there is a specific topic for discussion. Now, in the future, it is a specific topic for each meeting for in-depth discussion. The question is how you follow the matter up. You say that the policy unit, that the policy bureaus will follow the matter up, but will the CSD follow up on consensus? If there is a consensus at one or a consensus at a meeting, that's really a treasure. So would you report that to the public and also for this to this council? Mr. Fan. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Lee, for the question. The answer is in paragraph 4, 4B and 4C. We fully agree with the member. Our macro and long-term and high-level issues should be given the best support, and these recommendations should be made available to the policy bureaus and departments. Say if a particular topic has been discussed by the CSD, then my colleague has been and will be this. Now, since he's a directorate grade officer, he can talk to the policy bureaus and departments on what has transpired at the CSD meetings. In the past, we did give our papers to the heads of bureaus and departments. But this time, he will be more proactive in liaising with the bureaus and departments. And then the other element is public participation. In this regard, we were rather passive. We just put our discussion outcomes on the internet, and people did follow up, but we think we need to do more. The CSD may not have come to a consensus or decision, and even if that is the case, there are still outcomes. And even if there are differences in views, we can still see the key issues of the matter. So we propose to issue public documents to seek the views of the public. So we step up internal communication as well as external communication. And we hope that will achieve the outcome as required by Ms. Lee. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I support the proposal of the administration. I checked the internet on the public information. I don't know whether I don't know how to check the information. I just see several research reports which are put in the internet. If you want to increase transparency and let members public to give their advice, that will of course be forward-looking. And we all know that the discussion by the CSD is just one part, and public participation may be necessary before public participation in monthly sessions may be necessary for the policy making process. So I hope that you can publish more information. The third round, Mr. K.K. Kwok, or Dr. Kwok. I'm asking for further information. In fact, in the paper, we are told the major tasks or duties, responsibilities of that person from A to H.
The duties are rather specific, and to prepare briefs and speeches for chairman of the CSD. These are very specific tasks. A chairman of the CSD has a number of spin doctors, and what kinds of speeches will this assistant secretary write for the chairman? Now, there are other specific tasks like policy research and so on. You will be making public some policy research results. So what are the researches that you have undertaken in the past? Before the next Finance Committee meeting, can you provide a list of the research reports that you have done? Now, as for past issues that you have covered, please give us some statistics. Why I'm asking for so much information? I just want to ensure that we spend public funds effectively, and that the public funds are used cost effectively, and I just want to make sure that the CSD is doing its work properly. Thank you. That is Dr. Kwok-Kaki's suggestions and requests. So any response from you? Yes. Mr. Fan, can you talk a bit about the duties? Mr. Fan? Yes, 1 point to make. Thank you, Dr. Kwok. As for the speeches and briefs, that's actually routine work, and this colleague has all along been doing that. And actually the AS will be preparing briefs and speeches for the chairman when he hosts the meetings of the CSD. So we will also be providing you with information that you requested. If there are no further questions, I'll put this to the vote. For those who support the paper, the proposals in EC 2012, 1323 and 23A, please raise your hands. Those who object, please raise your hand. Ms. Emily Lau claim a division. The bell will ring for 5 minutes.
而家我哋進行
The paper put to vote is EC 20, 12, 13, 23, 23, and 23A. Now we're going to vote. Please press one of the three buttons to indicate your stance. For, against, or abstain. Before I announce the voting results, please check your votes. Voting stops. The results are displayed. Those for, 10, against 3. I announce the proposal is carried. Yes, for this paper, there will be a separate voting during the Finance Committee discussion. Well, that's a matter for another committee. I would remind the Secretariat of this. The second agenda item is paper EC 2012-13, 24. And that is the proposed retention of 2 supernumerary posts within the Works Bureau of the Development Works Branch of the Development of 1 Principal Government Town Planner D3 and 1 Government Architect D2, and for a period of 4 years to continue taking forward the initiative of Energizing Kowloon East through the established Energizing Kowloon East Office. On the 7th of January 2013, the administration consulted the development panel of the LegCo. The ones attending the meeting to respond to members' inquiries include Mr. Wai Chi-sing, Permanent Secretary for Development Works, Mr. Raymond Lee, Head of Energizing Kowloon East Office Development Bureau, Ms. Winnie Ho, Deputy Head of Energizing Kowloon East Office. As Mr. Lau Wong-fat, Chairman of the Development Panel, is not a member of this committee and he can't attend the meeting today, so I would be highlighting the discussions of the development panel based on the paper drafted by the Secretariat. The main points of discussions on the 7th of January are these. The members present generally support the continuation of the work of the EKEO. Their major opinions are as follows. The EKEO should implement initiatives under the Energizing Kowloon East program and to draw up a timetable on the work items to facilitate the general public's understanding of the relevant progress. And in the process of turning Kowloon East into a CBD, the government should avoid forcing through its proposals in changes and development and should respect the traditions of the industries and the cultural development in Kowloon East and listen to residents' views. Third, the administration should proactively contact or approach the operators in the old industrial buildings, including the arts and creative industry workers, individuals and groups, and to understand the impact of the transformation on their operations and to help them continue operating in that district. Fourth is to undertake efforts to resolve the conflict between the pedestrians and vehicles as soon as possible, and to make use of the flyover networks to enhance pedestrian flow in the district. The administration has actually responded to the various suggestions made by the members, and also have provided supplementary information after the meeting on how to assist the cultural and arts industries workers to continue operating in that district. So, members, the floor is open for your questions. 5 minutes. The first one is Dr. Kwakaki. It is necessary to continue with the EKE program, but the disadvantages are there before the advantages are seen. We've seen a number of local creative arts workers having studios there, and there are fast changes happening in the district, and grade A office space buildings are being erected all the time, and rents are rising, and the tenants are forced out of their premises. Your objective is to retain the creative industry there, but they can't afford the rent and are being driven out of their premises. I want to know what the government has done in that regard. In the development panel, we discussed that there are still lands under government's planning which their land use have not been changed, like the offices of the EMSD, the offices of the Water Supplies Department are in that district. In the EKE program, are there any plans? Well, in fact, we oppose demolition of buildings and then reconstruct or erection of new buildings. And we see old industrial buildings being demolished and new buildings are put up, but the rents are rising because of this. And actually, the old industry buildings are very suitable for creative art workers. And if that is not allowed, these art workers don't have room for survival at all. I don't see any plan under your program to help these creative arts workers. When they are talking with you on your plans, they are in the process of being forced out of their premises by their landlords. Can you undertake that in your future planning, or in the EKE program, there is sufficient space provided by the government on a rental basis to these creative arts workers? I think the government has also spelled out before that it wants to retain these creative art to help these creative arts workers. Yes, Mr. Y. Yes, I agree that we should tackle the concern raised by Dr. Kwok. In the 2011 policy address, we mentioned about this program. We understand that it is not easy to implement this program. It is unique in that there are vibrant activities in 2 old districts, and we have to take care not only the creative arts workers, but also small operators, the SMEs, as well. In 2011, we conducted a survey to understand that 80% of the operators in the old districts are SMEs, employing less than 10 workers. And over 500 operators are related to the creative and arts industries.
A year or so has passed. We will conduct a revised study to better understand the mix of industries in the district. I think, as you all know, we will make full use of public space which have not been fully used, including the flyover beneath Kwun Tong bypass, but it's a small space. The first site about 3,000 square meters. There is another site which is about 6,000, 7,000 square meters. We are planning to make use of these sites for creative and cultural industries. We also consider new and old buildings and work with the relevant bureaus to see whether space can be earmarked for the creative and cultural industries. The major site is one in Hoi Ban Road, about 6.4 hectares, and and also somewhere near Kwun Tong Pier. There is a lot of potential, and we'll earmark some space for the creative and cultural industries. Mr. Chairman, you earmark this. Does it mean that you earmark a small proportion, or they play a major portion? We will conduct a revised study or an update study to consider the demand inside and outside the district, and then we will respond accordingly. Ms. Starry Lee, the EKE, Energizing Kowloon East, has been a very important item, and we long for that, and we hope that Kowloon East can become the administration wanted to be a CBD. A new CBD. Last time when they applied for creating new posts, I told them this. The EKE is to develop the old Kai Tak Airport, Kai Tak area, and then radiate its effect to its neighboring districts. But you have missed Kowloon City and To Kwa Wan, which are rather old. As for those living in Kowloon City, they feel that they have been short-lived. All along, Kowloon City, or rather Kai Tak, has all along belonged to Kowloon City, but the EKE has not included To Kwa Wan and Kowloon City. In fact, there are quite a number of industrial buildings in To Kwa Wan which are facing the challenges of transformation or restructuring. Now, it seems that you are rather strict in your area. If there is any policy change, will that be applicable to the neighboring districts such as To Kwa Wan or Kowloon City? Now, when concerning the light rail system, you should consider extending that light rail system into Kowloon City and To Kwa Wan. The whole light rail system links Kwun Tong, Kowloon Bay with Kai Tak. Why can't you extend that light rail system to Kowloon City and To Kwa Wan? I hope you give me a categorical answer. The District Council has stated its demand very clearly. They hope that the service can be extended to neighboring areas when appropriate. You have not mentioned that. Well, Kowloon East is also neighboring Kai Tak. The Secretary, the paper focused only on the two poles, and therefore the light rail system was not mentioned. In the second quarter of this year, we will launch the second stage public engagement. And after the first stage of engagement, concerning whether there should be a light rail system or whether ordinary public transport will be used, or what will be the alignment of the light rail system, and what will be the impact on the Kwun Tong Typhoon Shelter. A lot of issues have to be tackled. So in the second quarter of this year, we will launch the second stage of public engagement. Whether the light rail system should be extended to other districts in Kowloon. At present, we have yet to see the redevelopment of the old districts. It is difficult to find a suitable alignment. In the second stage of public engagement, there will be further discussion in detail, and whether the redevelopment will be radiated beyond Kowloon Bay and Kai Tak. With regard to Kowloon East covering only Kowloon Bay and Kwun Tong. The issue was that 10 years ago we changed land use from industrial use to IO use, and the market has already started, has taken the lead, and we are just facilitating that transformation. As for redevelopment of other old districts, it is of course necessary, but as for the direction, format, and pace, they are still a subject of discussion. I think he has misunderstood me. Concerning the industrial buildings in To Kwa Wan, they've already been under transformation. But you just draw a line on the ground and you just limit your work to Kwun Tong and Kowloon Bay. So will you consider other areas outside Kwun Tong and Kowloon East? And we shouldn't just look at the commercial buildings. In the future, it will be a comprehensive development area. Planning proposals should be broader and shouldn't just be limited to Kwun Tong and Kowloon Bay. I insist on my position, but it seems that you have not responded to me. Would you just respond briefly concerning the EKE? Its remit only covers Kowloon Bay and Kwun Tong. As for redevelopment of other old districts, they have to be dealt with separately. I'm not talking about redevelopment of old districts. I'm not. Kai Tak and Kwun Tong are linked to other old districts. And the link should be looked into, and it is really necessary. Mr. Pond, Kowloon East should be a much wider area. People are actively working on the sites of Kai Tak. And your timetable is until June 2017. We're concerned about your timetable. Are you able to be more specific on your timetable? And we also want to know the timetable for public engagement as well. Yes, Mr. Y. Thank you, Chairman. The EKEO has published CMP2, Conceptual Master Plan version 2, and it will be updated from time to time. As for timetable, members may have noted that this supernumerary post is extended for 4 years. And in these 4 years, we'll implement our timetable. In the 4 years, in terms of design and site investigation, such works will be completed within 4 years, and then that will be followed by actual construction. And we will review the need of the manpower need of EKEO. So to answer members' question, we will implement the timetable within the next 4 years. So in other words, the 4 years will be for design, will be for advanced works and preparation, and actual building works will be after 4 years. Yes, as for major items, that's the case, but we've already started new small items. Chung Kok Pan. In Para 4, in October 2011, the first CMP was published, and it focuses on enhancing connectivity, branding, design, and diversity. I want to know the progress in these 4 areas and how much has been realized as far as your conceptual plan is concerned. Perhaps I ask the Commission, EKEO to answer the question. Concerning connectivity, we mean the provision of rail transport, and how can that be linked with Kwun Tong, with the waterfront, with Kai Tak new development. We are conducting several studies. One has been mentioned by the Secretary, and that is the green transport link. And we are already conducting a study on pedestrian link between Kai Tak and Kowloon Bay, and also access to the pedestrian access to the waterfront. We are doing the same in Kwun Tong. As the branding, we are doing local items, or placemaking rather. We call it placemaking, and we try to change people's perception and turn it into a commercial area, commercial and trade area. And we are going to introduce new design and green design. We are adding these elements to the transformation projects. As for diversity, there are different users, and in the transformation process, which is a very long time, it is necessary to take care of the needs of different groups, including those mentioned by Dr. Kwok, the arts groups, the creative industry practitioners. We will make the transformation with diversity. Mr. Chung, these are all conceptual, and these are all what we want to do. But is there a timetable, and can we be updated in progress? Well, in fact, this is a follow-up. When will you have a timetable? And you cover very broad topics such as environmental protection, linking with different districts, road networks. Can you really do that? No, not just macro concepts. How are you going to implement these? Yes, we need a timetable.
In the conceptual master plan, we outlined 10 major tasks. And for every task, we have a preliminary timetable. If members are interested, we can provide detailed information after the meeting. Yes, please do so. Next, Mr. Wong Kwok Kin. Thank you, Chairman. We've talked about the EKE program for a long time, and we support this initiative. It's just that in the process, we are concerned about the impact to the existing environment, economic activities. Has the administration consulted the relevant stakeholders? There is this shelter, water shelter in the area, or a boat shelter, and this is a shelter for major fishing boats during typhoons. And in all the documents, they are silent on this point. The operators in the industry are very concerned about this. Would this boat shelter be removed? If yes, where will it be relocated? And for those who are now in the trade, what kind of considerations has the government given in safeguarding their safety in the future? Have you talked to them previously? Well, we were silent on the green transport system and the boat shelter, and that is because the EKEO is responsible for the strategic planning of the project, and if green transport is going to be undertaken, it will fall under the ambit of the CEDD. So the paper doesn't mention that. So in the next quarter, in the second stage PE exercise, we will give details on the arrangements for the boat shelter there. At present, the CEDD is on constant dialogue with the users of the boat shelter. We have come up or presented with various options and their impact. And in the forthcoming PE exercise, we will be giving out all the details. I want to follow up, Chairman. A couple of days ago, we've received complaint letters from the industry complaining that the administration has not engaged in any dialogue with them, and they don't know what will happen to them. Now, Hong Kong is a place with a lot of typhoons, and then typhoon shelters are an important facility for the people in the trade. Of course, the EKE project is important, but we can't afford to neglect the safety of those working at sea. So I hope the administration can give full consideration to the matter, and please talk to them as soon as possible, because they don't know what your thinking is at present. And on many occasions, the administration has presents proposals which have not taken heed of public views. Now, the example they cited is that the government has built a typhoon shelter in Hailing Chau, and that was not usable at all because of the weather situation in that area. So the utilization rate is rather low in that area. So I hope the administration can talk to them as soon as possible. That is the view from Mr. Wong Kwok Kin. So if we want to develop the economy, the water economy is an important part, because the typhoon shelter is just located within the area under discussion. So it's impossible that they don't give it a thought, any thinking when they are planning for the use of the area. Yes, I noticed that, and I agree that the matter warrants our attention. It's not that we have not talked to them. We have indeed talked to the people concerned. So I think the duty of the proposed post should include that as well. Yes, Mr. Yu Si-wing, Chairman, I agree to the proposal to turn Kowloon East into a CBD, and that is a complicated and a long process. Now, as for the transport of Kowloon East, when we are still in the process of doing the transformation. We have constant congestion problems. Last week there was an accident. It took 1 hour and a half from Kowloon East to Tsim Sha Tsui, and then there are so many projects in the pipeline, and there are projects in the Kai Tak development area. Now, the official said that the EKE program includes Kwun Tong and Kowloon Bay. Yes, includes Kwun Tong, Kowloon Bay, and Kai Tak. Now, in that case, I'm very worried. Roads, water transport, the Lei Yu Mon, typhoon shelters, and so on. How are you going to deal with the transport situation in the whole district? There are complaints that the residents object to the building of a tunnel, and that may delay the project. How can the EKEO coordinate works among various government departments and across districts? And if you are not doing a good job, then the impact is going to be huge. Because once the construction projects are there, then there's no way to turn back. Yes, Mr. Lee said that CBD has to do with connectivity. The connectivity should be considered at all districts. As for connectivity, in the district, we hope to build a light rail to connect various parts of the district. We're talking about 3 levels of work. One is we want to improve the flyover network. Second, we want to improve the pedestrian environment. And thirdly, we want to enhance the efficiency of existing transport modes. And over the past period, we have reviewed with the Transport Department the 40 sets of traffic signals to make changes, to make improvements, and we would be heading towards that direction in the future. Mr. Yu, do you have any follow-up questions? Now, apart from planning within these districts, now with the commissioning of the Hong Kong-Macau Bridge in 2016, and then there is the express rail from Hong Kong to Shenzhen to be completed soon. And people are crossing over to the mainland through Wong Kwang and Lok Ma Chau. Now, if you are doing transport arrangements, have you taken heed of the need for cross-border transport? For that, we depend on major trunk lines, cross-border trunk lines. And the crux of the question is to link the transport mode in the district with the cross-border trunk lines. And number 6 route, it passes through Kowloon East. And for rail system, we plan to use a light rail to connect or monorail to connect the various districts. I have to make a declaration. I'm a Kowloon City District Council member, and I'm also a resident in the district. I want to follow up with you, Mr. Lee. You've been following up on this project. Your duty, number 5, is to assume the central coordinating and monitoring role in the project management design of the development in Kowloon Bay and Kwun Tong and Kai Tak development. I'm happy that we have this project when it was first proposed. But then you left out Kowloon City and To Kwa Wan, and the district council was infuriated because Kai Tak is situated exactly within Kowloon City, and you exclude Kowloon City and To Kwa Wan from your planning. Can you briefly respond on how you can ensure that in your planning you would not leave out the planning for connections between Kowloon East and other districts outside Kowloon East? You want to achieve a good synergy effect, and Kai Tak development area is such a big piece of land. And you are not thinking about how to revitalize the Kowloon City district, which falls within the Kai Tak development area. You haven't given us a satisfactory explanation so far. So there are also industrial buildings in Kowloon City, and there is a need also for strategic development in the area. Now, you should not be just focusing on Kowloon Bay and Kwun Tong in your program. Now, on this specific point or duty of yours that you have to coordinate the developments in the various areas, how can you ensure that To Kwa Wan and Kowloon City are going to be considered by you in your coordination work? Thank you, Ms. Lee, for your question. On paragraph 5, the major task of the EKEO, the Secretary has explained before that the EKE is aimed at promoting the transformation of Kowloon East, and the transformation is taking place in Kowloon Bay and Kwun Tong, and we focus on how, through the Kai Tak development, we can accelerate the transformation of Kowloon Bay and Kwun Tong and build a CBD. Now, as for the development in Kai Tak, as Mr. We would definitely consider its neighboring areas, including Kowloon City and To Kwa Wan. And it's just because the EKEO's major focus of work is to accelerate the transformation of Kowloon Bay and Kwun Tong. It doesn't mean that in the development of Kai Tak, we would not be looking or taking care of the needs of To Kwa Wan and Kowloon City. In Ting-kwong 1, there are industrial buildings in existence, and there are changes to the use of these industrial buildings at present. When we plan for connectivity of the Kowloon Bay and Kwun Tong, and we plan for enhancing the connectivity of these districts, that would definitely involve making changes or serving as good reference for transformation of Ting-kwong 1 and Kowloon City. We would be keeping a close contact with you on that matter, Ms. Starry Lee. I still have a follow-up question. Enclosure 2, you mentioned about enhancing connectivity. You are still focusing about the pedestrian environment in Kowloon Bay. Mr. Yu has the same concern as myself because we are the district councillors of that district. You said that there will be a coordination with the Kowloon City. And, well, can you provide a paper telling me how you are concerned with Ting-kwong 1 and Kowloon City, or how you are going to coordinate with the Kai-Tak office under the CEDD? I don't think you can take away Kowloon City from your overall plan. Ms. Starry Lee, you can queue again. But then, if you talk about detailed plans, I have a question on whether it is appropriate for the ESC to deal with the matter. Perhaps you can go back to the district councils to deal with the matter. Actually, the DC has discussed that, but the administration has turned a blind eye to the issue. Now, we are talking about duties of the post here, and I think that is related to what I'm discussing. Now, I don't think you should take out Kowloon City from your overall planning and your consideration. All right, let me respond to Ms. Lee in this way. The EKEO covers Kowloon City, Kwun Tong, and Kai-Tak development area, and we will coordinate with the buildings department. Let me cite an example. There is a new redevelopment project of the URA, and because of this building, we have to undertake coordination work with other departments. Yes, does it mean that you would be coordinating with plannings department, buildings department, and so on and so forth? Yes, as chairman, it's just basic that they are doing all these coordination works. I just want them not to take out Kowloon City from their planning. I want an undertaking from them. I think it's all related. Yes, they are definitely going to undertake the coordination work. Yes, Ms. Lee, you've heard them, right? If members don't have any other questions, I'll put this item to the vote. For those who support EC 2012-13-24, the proposals are in. Please raise your hands. Those who object, please raise your hands. I believe that all of those present support the proposal. The proposal is carried. There is no other business, and we would be forwarding the proposals agreed upon by the members to the FC for consideration. They would be forwarded to the FC on the 3rd of May, unless members have other or have objection, and these two items will not be discussed again. And we would ask the FC to single out item 1 to separately endorse it. Any objection from the members for such an arrangement? If not, I'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.